Valerie, and I am an alcoholic and an addict. I'm grateful to say I haven't used in almost 30 years. It'll be 30 years in December. The promises came true for me. I no longer have even the slightest desire. It took almost 15 years of slamming myself into a wall to get there, but I am grateful to be here. Yeah. There are some words in your life that will stay with you forever. I was fortunate enough when I got pregnant to be able to stop using. And I didn't pick up again until my daughter stopped nursing. But after she stopped nursing, I kind of wanted back in my husband's life, and I didn't really know how to proceed, and so the alcohol came back into my life. And on December 30th, 1990, I went out a night early, somehow made it home, woke up face down on my couch on December 31st, and a little bitty 2-year-old who wandered right up to the couch, and I flipped over my head and I'm looking straight into the eyes of my daughter, and she says, "Mommy sick?" I said, "Yeah, Mommy's sick." And I called a friend of mine who I was going to school with, and she had a sticker on her car. I'd been in and out of the rooms many times. I knew the stickers, I knew the slogans. So I called her and I said, "I need some help." And she came over and she stayed with me the day. And she stayed with my daughter the night while I went to not my first AA meeting, but the one that stuck. And it was New Year's Eve. I crawled into that meeting lower than the mud on your feet and surrendered. And my life has been an incredible journey since then. I'm so grateful for AA, for recovery, for the healing power that we can't even comprehend. Yeah. So I got sober, and 6 months later, a port wine stain that had been on my left leg my whole life turned out to be endangering my life. I finally got a diagnosis that I had an arterial malformation that had grown to the point where there was no resistance for my heart, and I was going into congestive heart failure. Okay, let's fix it. What do we have to do? Injections of pure grain alcohol. That's the only thing, the only way they treated it back then. They have glues now. It's a lot less painful. But I had a salty old doctor who called me in and diagnosed me, and he said, "We're going to bring you in here, and we're going to knock you down into the dirt. When you can get back up, we're going to bring you back in here. We have no idea how long this is going to take. We have never treated anything this large. And you may lose your legs, and you may be paralyzed. But we're going to fight for your life. If we don't get this out of you, it's going to kill you in about 3 years." So there's a dose of reality, a dose of humility. So I walked out of there and I thought, what better treatment for an alcoholic than a medically supervised drunk? Bring it on. That lasted until the end of the first treatment. what happens to an artery when you inject alcohol into it is that it burns it up. And it burns all of the tissue around it. And it burns up from the inside out. So it keeps deteriorating for a couple of weeks until it surfaces, and then you have this hole in your leg that is from burning. And it's incredibly painful. It was incredibly debilitating. It ended up taking 4 years of treatment. Treatment was no treat. To shrink my heart back to normal size and to get me back to a normal life expectancy. In that process, they did hit a nerve. I was paralyzed from the knee down completely. I had no movement, no feeling in my left leg. You wouldn't know that today. I did a lot of study around healing and around what it takes to heal. I got real with my higher power and my own practice. At one point after they had hit the nerve, my husband, who struggled through all of this with me, worked 2 jobs, and it was very hard on our family. My mother moved from Texas to North Carolina to help take care of us. I had to walk with a walker after each one of these 14 different treatments over this. At that time, the treatments went for 3 years, and then I had a major surgery that was 12 hours long, where they cut off my belly, cut the malformation out of my leg, and sewed my whole belly onto my leg. They took a vein from the back of my calf to hook it all together. So I woke up in ICU with over 200 staples holding my body together. And after, that was the last year. In the middle of this, when I was paralyzed, was another sentence I'll never forget. And that was, "You're a liability to me now. You'll never be able to raise our daughter, and we need to sue them, and we need to make them pay." And they were still in the middle of my treatment. I was still fighting for my life. I said, "No, we are not going to sue them. They are saving my life, and I'm not done yet." And our marriage kind of deteriorated from there. It was very hard. At one point, during all of these treatments, I would have a treatment. It would be horrible. I couldn't walk without a walker for a couple of weeks, and then I would get stronger, and then I could do a few things while my body was healing, and then I would go back in for another treatment. And during that, I managed to finish going to university, and my mother there supporting me and helping me, taking care of my daughter and taking care of me right after each one of the treatments. And then I would get stronger after the nerve was damaged. I had to walk with an AFO splint, which is a prosthetic to keep my foot from flopping around, but I could walk with it. Anyway, I was going to AA still, and trying to do my best with treatments that some people didn't understand. I wasn't drinking, I wasn't using. I was having to have some incredible medical treatments, and I was in a lot of pain. I had to manage that somehow. So I did it the best way I could. There was someone in the rooms who had also had a really bad car accident and almost lost his leg. And his inspiration and support was very important to me at that time. And in fact, I think helped me survive that period of my life. However, this was discovered by my husband, and he was in the Coast Guard at the time. So he and all of his buddies did a bunch of surveillance, and I ended up in a small community having some pretty severe public humiliation around that, and having to walk through all of that and try to deal with the moral injury of that. Our marriage didn't survive. In 1995, which was 5 years after my diagnosis, and finally got through that last surgery. I had one more to kind of shape my leg a little bit better, but it was not bad at all. A few months after that, my mother passed away without warning of a heart attack, and she had been my support, my lifeline. It was a devastating loss for me. And during that year, my husband bought a house. We moved into that house. Then we divorced, and I moved out, got another house, and then my mother died, and I ended up moving into her house. At the same time, my daughter was diagnosed with learning disabilities. Imagine that she couldn't learn through all that was happening. So that was the hardest year of my life, really. Even though I had gotten through all of the fighting for my life, I lost my marriage, moved 3 times, lost my mother, and really tried to have to figure out how to show up for my daughter better. My mother and I had started a little business together during this time, an art, we called it the Art Foundry, Water Street Art Foundry. And we had, it was a large warehouse we turned into artist studios, and different artists rented space from us, and we had a little gallery. My mother worked it during the times that I was recovering, on the upper end of the recovery, stronger, before I went back in. And so I kept that going for a couple of years after she passed, but she was the business mind behind that, and I didn't really didn't enjoy doing that part of it. So I packed up all of the stuff, and we sold, asked the artist to move out, and sold what I could. Finally finalized the divorce in 1996. And by 1998, my ex-husband was out of the Coast Guard, and he was pretty out of control with his own using. I decided that we were going to do something different. So I had a friend at the time that was a locational analyst. I had a small inheritance from my mother, and we went to the beach. My daughter and I moved to Anguilla, British West Indies in the Caribbean, and just to take a break. American culture was getting its hooks into her in ways that I couldn't combat. I wasn't strong. I was really hurt and very weak and very lost. And she was hooked by materialism and competition and the frustration of not being able to learn the same way as her peers, even though she's absolutely brilliant. So she's hyper intelligent and yet struggling so much in school. It was not. It was really hard for her self-esteem. So we decided to go to the beach. And we were going to stay 1 year, and we ended up staying 2. We spent the changing of the millennial, Y2K, and oh my God, is the world going to blow up on an island? If the world's going to blow up, we might as well be on an island. And yeah, I did a lot of soul searching there and walked the beach and tried to figure out, what is this life about, and who am I, what do I want? And I honed in on the 3 things that spark me the most, and that is art and healing and spirituality. And I looked around on the internet trying to figure out what brought all of those things together, and I found art therapy and Southwestern College in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so after 2 years, the world not blowing up, we went back to North Carolina, packed up our house, and moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. I never really imagined myself as an art therapist. I just chose to study what I loved. And it has been my honor and my joy to do this work, to sit with people as they go through whatever their life brings to them. I say there is no judgment here. You will not find judgment from me. I know what it is like to have to recover from doing and being things that you can't even imagine that you've done or been. And growing out of that and coming to joy and to magic and to power and to love. It's quite a journey, and everyone makes it in their own way. And that's a little bit of my story. That's a little bit of how I made it. So yesterday we filmed the majority of my story, and the incredible individuals helping me film this and hold the space for me as I'm doing this posed a question, and it was, do you need to tell your story? And I sat with that last night, and I came to the knowing that I don't need to tell the story anymore, that I am not my story. But I want you to know my story so that you can see you are not your story either. We are all incredibly complex beings, having an incredibly complex experience here, made up of thoughts and emotions and experiences and judgments and learning and education and loss and grief and pain and trauma. And all of that comes together in us in unique ways. 7.5 billion people on this planet, 7.5 billion different stories, and all similar, all human. We're human beings. We're going to get it right sometimes, and we're not going to get it right. We're going to do really amazing things, and we're going to do really hurtful and stupid things. And the thing is that we have to come to terms with that in ourselves and decide, how are we going to live our lives? Are we going to live our lives in shame? Or are we going to live our lives in joy? And I feel incredibly guided and gifted and grateful to have arrived at this place in my life where I can live from joy, and I can live from a place of trying to give my very best to you all, to this planet, to any person that I come into contact with, and to myself. If I can't give it to me, I can't give it to you. And I really invite you to take that in and give it to yourself. Give yourself a break. You know, and when we're using and we're drinking and we're drugging, we're doing all kinds of hurtful, stupid, dangerous things. And to get sober and have to own up to that, it's hard. It hurts to know ourselves at our worst. And it takes time to heal that, and it takes patience and care and love and forgiveness and determination that those things will not define me. They will not define you. They don't define you. Your experience is not who you are. Who you are is your heart, your intention, your way of being on this planet, your way of walking through your life. And I've learned a few things. I've learned a lot in my life. I started out incredibly naive and ignorant and projected upon and controlled. Just to find my voice was a major accomplishment for me. To be able to change the way that I lived my life through sobriety was a major accomplishment. To educate myself and try to understand, to deal with the rage that I had inherited from 3 generations of very rageful people. I don't feel that rage anymore, but I can feel honest anger, and I can respond to it in a way with boundaries or my voice or what I feel like is appropriate. And all of that has been an incredible learning experience. I wish that for anyone, if my life could serve you all, that's what I would want. And that's the intention behind my boxes. It's the intention behind my work, is that I give you something that can serve you in your life. You don't have to go through what I had to go through to learn it all. I hope for you that. I hope you will look into my boxes and see if they have anything for you. I just want to part and end this with a thank you. A thank you to that mysterious part of this existence that cannot be really named or understood, for bringing me here and for allowing me to live this life.